Hello, everybody, and welcome to Unanswered Questions. Sometimes during our live broadcasts, we just don't get enough time to answer all the amazing questions from students. So we're going to answer some of the top upvoted ones we didn't get time to get to from March.
Let's get after it.
Alrighty. First question. What level of education is required to become an internet investigator?
I'll take that one. You know, there's a lot of post-secondary college universities now that offer courses specifically on conducting online investigations. So I know that they have ethical hacking courses in universities. I know that colleges like BCIT now offers diploma programs specifically on how to be an online investigator. Once you get into policing, if you decide that that's the way that you want to go, you can take specialty courses through things like open source intelligence certifications. Like there's a variety of different ways to do it. However, I would recommend if that's something that you're looking to get involved in, getting some type of certification from a recognized organization would be important.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to go to college, but there's definitely some benefits
For sure.
there.
For sure.
Do websites get hacked every day? Yeah, there are a bunch of little tiny data breaches that happen all the time. But there's so many websites that there's the good chance the data breach will probably never affect you. But yeah, it happens every day.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
What apps do you recommend for blocking hackers? Well, I guess to prevent some hacker or scammer from breaking into your computer, you're probably looking for a good, reputable antivirus program. Bitdefender, ESET, any of the big name brands. Yeah, it will help detect any malicious code in your computer and kick it out before it runs.
How about getting a good router as well?
Routers can help as well. Definitely they're yeah, the router you get from your internet provider, the cheap free one, free quote unquote, you still pay for it in a way.
Just a little bit.
It's usually not as powerful and security may not be the top priority. So yeah, a better router can help as well. But I think the best step is your antivirus.
Yeah, for sure.
What apps do you, how many screens do you use?
I guess it depends upon where you are. Like right here in the studio right now, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
There's usually another laptop here.
10. Right here in the studio, right? Like,
and then we have the same amount of screens copied in the actual production office.
Yeah, and in my personal office, I use 3.
Yeah.
I won't even get into how many you have in your office. It looks like a nuclear power plant.
In the production office, which I mostly work in, we have all the same screens mimicked. So if we're out here or in there, you can see what's happening on set.
Right.
And then there's also screens on my other computer for editing. So
it does look like a nuclear power plant in there, though, with all the screens and everything that you have.
Yeah, there's a few.
Yeah, a few.
Can you distinguish between safe and harmful websites? Well, I guess the first part is if the website is intentionally bad and hateful, well, then it's probably a bad website to go to. Now, if you're looking at, again, scamming websites that try to pretend to be a legitimate website, maybe they offer you a fake login that looks like a real login. Most scammers and hackers, the way they achieve that is by manipulating web links. So if ever you're sent a link to log in or pay for something, always double check the top URL bar. You check the entire length of it, because usually the scammy part is at the end, and that's what hackers rely on, because that's where they hide it, because people don't always go to the end of the bars that they click on.
Right.
So, or recommendation is if you're being asked to log into something, don't do it from a link.
Yeah, exactly.
Go to the actual app on your phone or the actual website, www.whateveritis.com, and go in that way.
Yeah, for sure.
Those are your best strategies. Yep. Do you wear a standard uniform for broadcasting, or do you just choose your own attire?
I'll answer that one. I mean, we have a habit, like when I'm presenting, I kind of wear the same thing all the time, right? It's kind of like when I was in policing, I had a uniform. Well, this is kind of like what I'm wearing right now. The shirt may change. I may sometimes use a tie rather than the color that I have now, but usually I always wear my vest, and I usually start with a white fedora. And
yeah, I think, yeah, I usually wear the hat during the entirety of the broadcast. You usually take it off.
It makes me hot.
Yeah, yeah. We have different technical different clothing, but there's usually a vest. I mean, mine has
one pin.
You have a lot of pins. I have one pin.
I like pins.
Bling. Yeah.
Bling.
So,
mine are all medals.
True.
That's what I have is my medals that I've earned.
So, and it changes from time to time.
It does.
But there's usually a common theme.
Yeah.
How do you remove a virus from your device? Well, like I said earlier, probably using an antivirus software is going to be your go-to method because most average internet users don't know where to look and how to find the actual bad file and get rid of it safely.
Do you have to be careful about the antivirus that you're using? Like, is there a difference between, because there's a lot of free stuff out there compared to the premium stuff? Like, what do you say?
Hard to, obviously, the premium stuff is usually better. There have been some free stuff out there, but usually it's not as good or as comprehensive as the stuff you pay for. Now, certainly free is better than nothing, certainly. And yes, there can be some scammy ones that are actually a virus in disguise. So just make sure you're using a reputable and well-used brand.
And isn't it true that most virus protection is always playing a game of catch-up as well, right? Because in order for them to create antivirus, there needs to be a virus in the first place, which starts to spread. Then they recognize it, and then
if you, for example, get a virus that has never before seen in the world, which is likely not going to happen. Usually those types of viruses are used to breach like companies and governments.
Yeah, we call those novel, right?
Yeah, or 0 days.
Yeah, 0 days.
Usually that's sort of what those are dedicated for, because once they're caught, then they get scanned, they get digitized and fingerprinted.
Yeah.
So most of the viruses that most consumers are going to come across are going to be ones that have already been out in the wild for a while, because all the good stuff is saved for the valuable computers.
For sure.
What gaming consoles do you prefer to play on?
I don't use a gaming console. I use my PC, but you?
Well, you have a Mac.
I do.
So, I mean, gaming,
Here we go.
Here
we go.
Mac
Feet up on the Mac.
is getting better. To be fair, Mac gaming is getting better. I do think Mac needs to do some work in terms of its reputation in the gaming industry. Now, I don't play on a console. I used to a long time ago.
You had all of them.
I mean, what do I have? I have a classic PlayStation. Oh, I have a PlayStation Portable. I've been gaming on consoles for quite a while. Although more recently, I've opted for PC gaming.
Yeah. What's that?
It's a 4080 graphics card.
Oh.
So.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing. We have some good hardware in the studio to do broadcasting.
Yeah,
so, I mean,
there are times I know you come out here to play games as well.
I mean,
how powerful the system is.
If the hardware's not actively being used and I'm not currently working, I'm taking a bit of a break, and maybe I want to pull up some nice ray tracing on a game with the studio hardware. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But we broadcast a lot, so I don't always get to have time to use the...
or when you do, you come out in the weekends.
Or it's the weekends when schools are not in session.
Exactly.
Can hackers infiltrate offline games? Typically not in the moment, but what hackers will sometimes do is they'll put, when it comes to pirated or torrented games where you're not paying for it properly, sometimes hackers will make a malicious version of the game. Yes, you get a free version of the game, but they sneak in a virus in there. And yeah, the game is technically offline, but you still have to download it from the internet from some place.
Mm-hmm.
So that's usually how that could work.
Mm-hmm.
My tablet is bombarded with ads unexpectedly. How can I prevent this? Ooh, I guess it depends on where and how those ads are coming in. So my first recommendation is check your browser. A lot of browsers today, they have the ability to send you notifications to websites that you like and enjoy. The challenge is some people, when they may have accidentally pressed yes to receive notifications, and then they're browsing websites.
Brandon, can you come up and help me? I got this thing keep popping up on my computer.
Yeah, and you get these pop-ups because so check your notifications in your browsers.
Bloody boomers.
Because that might be not because it's a hacker, but maybe you just
there's third parties, right? Like Privacy Badger is a good one that can help on that. And
Yeah.
and some of the browsers, like I know the Brave browser helps to really minimize those
True.
types of things coming up as well.
Yeah.
So you may decide rather than using Google Chrome, which is infamous for this kind of stuff, maybe going to the Brave browser or the Ghost Read browser or the Firefox browser, right?
Yeah, and if it's not the browser issue, do check your computer or tablet for viruses and spam type files. Antivirus software should scan it and kick it off for you. Should I be concerned about TikTok handling my personal data?
I'll take, I'll take that. There's lots and lots of discussions and controversy like that. The biggest thing is TikTok is owned by BitDance, which is basically a Chinese-based company, and China, the Republic of China, their government has the right to access all data coming in. So there's a concern there. Like I know that governments, Canadian government, US government, a lot of governments prohibit TikTok from being downloaded on any kind of government device for that reason. I don't necessarily think it's as big of a deal for personal usage.
I think the TikTok CEO put it really clearly. North American social media companies haven't had a good track record of handling personal data as altruistically as they probably should.
Good word.
So I mean, it doesn't matter. TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, and all these platforms, they're data mining and selling and using that information. So does it matter if it's North American or if it's some other country? They're all pretty much working the same way. So yeah. All for their bottom line.
Right.
Are SurfShark and Nord VPN reliable VPN services? I haven't tried them myself. However, I have seen them quite popularly used. So, and they're pretty big companies. So I would assume they're probably good, decent, regular VPNs.
Yeah, we're really careful about recommending anything that we've never really tried firsthand.
I actually have intention of trying Nord probably when my current subscription to our current VPN changes.
Right.
Just because some changes in terms of what Nord has done, which I think is pretty cool.
Like?
They have some features in regards to where their servers are and how they handle data and the ownership of the company compared to, say, other VPNs.
Yeah, right.
So Nord, I'm interested in. I'll probably switch when our current sub ends. But yeah, they're pretty, from what I can tell.
PIA?
They were bought a few years ago by a marketing agency. So there's and the company in the past haven't necessarily handled people's data really well. The company that bought PIA.
Oh, okay.
So there's just some concerns over,
good to know.
Going forward, are they going to continue that?
Right.
So there's has been some concerns there. So
what's the cost of something like a Nord VPN?
They're usually only a couple bucks a month if you subscribe for either a 2 or 3 year plan.
Yeah.
You can pay month to month, but usually they're closer to $10.
Yeah, if you're going to get it, just buy the yearly subscription, right?
Yep.
We recommend VPNs, right?
Yep.
So.
Can using a streaming service for pirated content lead to legal repercussions?
I'll take that one. We had a really good discussion with David Fraser, who's kind of a tech privacy lawyer here in Canada, who says technically, yes, it's still illegal for you to do that if you're watching it yourself. Now, what's the likelihood of them coming after you? If you're just watching it, very low. However, if you're recording it and sharing it, the risks go up. But just know that it's still a breach of copyright to watch it or to stream it. So
yeah.
What are in Canada?
Yes, and I would assume most places that have copyright law. What are indicators that someone might be a hacker? Well,
you won't know.
I mean, you never know until they actually do something bad. But typically, offering you a free game that they didn't pay for, you didn't pay for. You're downloading things from random places, not proper app stores. They're asking you for things, that are inappropriate. Just those weird things that normal, average, regular people just don't do on the internet.
The problem is these really good ones, they socially engineer you to the degree that you totally trust them, right? And then by then it's too late. You won't know until you're hit.
Mm-hmm.
So
how can I prevent or stop receiving scam text messages?
good luck.
Well, if you have a phone, if it's like a phone cellular text message, there are do not call lists. Different countries have different lists that scammers or marketers are supposed to follow. But if it's an actual scam, and they're actually trying to, break the law because they're selling you something bogus, well, then they're not going to follow that list anyways. However, that being said, both Apple and Android are having more smart features that will through their systems, will better recognize potential messages that are scammy, that have been identified previously, and actively notify or block them from coming through. I do think Google is doing a better job at that with their AI. Although Apple was one of the first to have AI assistants on their phones, definitely they've fallen behind in the last few years. Siri is kind of as smart as a pile of bricks, it feels like at times.
Although they've announced that there's a big announcement this year that
supposedly
they're
going to add generative AI, which Apple does need to stay competitive because Google's done that.
Yeah, for sure.
So using a smartphone, built-in anti-scam and calling lists, what might be a useful strategy to try. Plus, you can also block numbers that come through so they don't call you again. What's your favorite Fortnite emote?
I don't play Fortnite. I'm World of Tanks, man, but you do.
Yeah, I play Fortnite every Friday or so with a group of friends. My favorite Fortnite emote. I like the. I've been using the Zoidberg crab emote more recently because it's just silly. Yeah,
it just went over my head.
Yeah. So, that's the one I usually use if I want to just goof around. What platforms do universities consider when evaluating applications, and do they review such search histories?
I'll take that one. I think what's really important is here in Canada, really the only time they're going to look at it is when it comes to scholarship or grants. Trying to get into just a university, they're not really going to look at it per se. The United States is a little different. United States, they have a habit of not just for scholarships and grants, but also as a way to kind of whittle down the number of people applying. But, here in Canada, not so much. What we teach students to do is rather than think about using their social media and leveraging it to give them an advantage, rather than something to hide, use it as something to show attitude, to show a college university, this is the reason why you want me, right? This is why you wanted me for a scholarship or grant or even to bring me into your university because look at all the cool things I'm doing, right?
Yeah, it's usually when you're applying for something more prestigious.
Correct.
There's very limited seats.
Yeah.
If you're just going for just general university, you are the moneymaker for them, so they're probably going to let you in no matter what, unless you've done something really bad that they become aware of. Most of the time, only for those limited opportunities.
The bigger issue is when you're applying for jobs, right? That's when we get 92% of employers in Canada have stated that as soon as they get a resume, first thing you do is they Google the name, right? That's where it becomes the issue. Not so much university and college, except for grants and scholarships, where they will definitely check. But when it comes to jobs, they will be checking, right?
What are common signs of online scams or phishing attempts, and how can individuals avoid falling victim to them?
Ooh, this is right up your alley.
Like most hackers and scammers, it's through links and buttons that they try to hide the scamminess of their attempts. They have to make a fake website. So to do that, you have to register a website. So always double check the top URL bar and never log in or pay for something from a link someone sends you. Always go directly to the source. Is online search activity permanent? All online activity permanent?
We always get that question, right? And the answer is it depends, right? Like, will most people be able to see it? No. But does your internet service provider collect that information? Yeah, they sure do. Even if you delete it, they still have it. And so do the sites that you're visiting, right? Because every time you sign into a site, they're recording it. And as a result of that, that is accessible by law enforcement by way of warrant. So
plus your devices have a record.
Right.
So there can be, at minimum 3 places where data is stored. Now, there are different services that claim to, delete or not host or keep any data, and that's great, but there can be other places where data can be captured.
For sure. Not easily accessible, and usually only accessible by way of warrant or if it was hacked and leaked. Right? I'm thinking of the what was that dating site?
Ashley Madison.
Ashley Madison is a good example.
Come have an affair was their byline.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was quite a story when that broke.
A lot of people sweating bullets over that one.
Can private text messages be accessed and used against you?
The answer is yes. Like if you send a private text message to me, and as a frenemy, you may not know this, I screen capture without you knowing, I can then repost it publicly. And in fact, we've helped a number of teens and adults deal with that very issue.
Yeah, and always remember that most texting platforms now, they're cloud-based. So you log in on this phone or that computer, you can see your text history. So the challenge is, what if you have a bad password, someone logs in as you forget to log out, and someone goes into your account and they can see all your history of messages you've sent. Although it may not be someone who you talked to, someone who gets in can see it because there's a record somewhere of that. So yeah, there's always a possibility.
Like we say, nothing is ever private. As soon as you hit that send button, just understand it can become public, permanent, searchable, exploitable, copyable, and shareable.
Yeah,
right.
Just remember that by default, and you'll probably be fine.
Yeah. In most cases.
In most cases. You're probably going to be less likely to do things you don't want to do because if you remember that, but, people are people.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it advisable to permanently abstain from social media?
Yeah, I'll answer that one. Probably not. Now, if you make a decision to do that, there's nothing wrong with that decision. But the reality is, in today's online world, as we like to call it, technology is ubiquitous in everything that we do. And so I believe that rather than trying to escape from it, rather embrace it and use it in a positive way would be my recommendation.
Is there a way to avoid paying fines for illegally downloading content? Well, I mean, you can choose then not to download things you shouldn't download.
That's the best prevention in the world.
If you get caught for doing something you shouldn't and you get charged or fined because of it, unfortunately, that's just a consequence.
Yeah, I think we call it consequences to actions.
I mean, you can choose not to pay it, but then you're going to have bigger issues down the road.
Correct.
So,
So one of the ways to avoid paying fines is don't do something where you're going to get fined. I mean, it's that simple, right?
Yeah. How can one protect themselves from scammers?
You kind of answered that one a little bit earlier, right?
I think the best, if you're creating an online environment where you're really only engaging with the friends and people you know, then you're probably going to have a really great time. If you have an open social network where anyone can send you anything, then you're probably going to receive messages you're not going to appreciate. So if you curate your online experience for what you want to have, then you're probably going to avoid many issues like scammers. Is it possible to completely erase content from social media platforms?
I think that depends upon where you live in the world. I mean, a good example, EU has the right to forget law that they have in place, right?
It really depends, yes. So there are some social networks where you can delete something from their server, indeed. But if it's an open social network where the page is public, well, then there are computers that are copying publicly accessible stuff.
Yeah.
Now, if it's a closed social network where only you can see what's happening, well, then you're probably more likely going to succeed in deleting something.
Right.
But if you have a friend social network, how do you know a friend didn't take a copy of that? Yeah. So there still exists somewhere.
Yeah.
It depends, but never consider anything to truly forever be deleted.
Yeah. As soon as you hit that send button, public, permanent, searchable, exploitable, copyable, shareable, and for sale.
How can one prevent accidentally clicking on unsecured links?
Your mother keeps saying this to me. Read first.
Well, okay.
Read first.
The thing about links today is all websites by default should be encrypted. That's by default. Web browsers have built-in tools now. Unless a website, if they don't have that security, you get a warning.
Yeah.
All browsers have that by default. So that's good. Now, hackers and scammers, they can make a secure website for free. It's not hard to do. But in the early days of the internet, you click on a bad website, you might get hacked. Today, that doesn't really happen. There's really good security by default. Only once you engage and then download something from that unsafe place, then you get issues.
Also, hovering over the link sometimes will allow you to see where that link may be going so that you can make more of an informed decision, right?
Yeah. Scammers hide malicious links and buttons,
Yeah.
so you don't see where we're actually going,
Yeah.
or bit.ly links or other things like that. So yeah. Is using ChatGPT considered cheating?
I'll answer that one. Depends. Are you using it to, let's say you're a student, you have a book report to do. Instead of reading the book and writing a report, you just go into ChatGPT and go, hey, ChatGPT, can you please write me a book report for a grade 11 student on the book Catcher in the Rye or Orwell's 1984? And it does it for you and you turn it in. To me, that would be cheating.
Yeah. Although the Texas school board is now using AI to grade tests.
Yeah, I know.
So, I mean...
I think, you know, the challenge with AI is we're still in what I like to call the wild, wild west, right? And it's definitely transformative, much like the internet was when it first created, right? So, and because of that, we're still kind of working our way around it. But what I have seen over the past year is rather than teachers fearing it, which we saw when it first came out, like, oh my God, our students are going to be using this to cheat all over the place. I think teachers now have accepted the fact that it's here, it's not going anywhere. So how do we teach good digital literacy on how to use it in an appropriate way?
Yeah.
Right?
I've seen more teachers, you know, make the requirements for their written work higher. You have to do a better job in your writing because it's expected. You're going to use tools like that. Yeah. If we're going to consider ChatGPT as cheating at any degree, I would argue using spell check in Microsoft Word is also cheating. Yeah. So, but
context, right?
It's context, right? I mean, I've used ChatGPT because syntax and such in my writing is usually not as good as it should be. So I use
good word syntax.
Yeah.
Good word.
So sometimes I'll write a piece of work and then I use ChatGPT to kind of fine tune some things to make more sense. Or I've used ChatGPT to test an argument where I'll have it identify logical fallacies so that it makes a piece of work much harder to argue against.
Gotcha.
Which now you have to go back to the drawing board and go, okay, how do I fix that issue? How do I fix that flaw in my logic?
Your argument.
Yeah. Exactly. Which, again, we're seeing teachers and educators increase the level of what their expectations are.
Yeah, we're seeing ChatGPT being used to prepare people for exams as well, right? Where they create exams based upon a knowledge of work that you're going to be tested on, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool that way.
But if you just go write me an essay and it does it for you, I think that's the threshold.
I agree.
That's where problems happen.
Yeah, I agree.
How can I quickly deactivate all my social media accounts and apps?
There are a variety of different ways. There's some really good sites online now where you can go there and it lists all the major social media platforms and apps that you're using and walks you through on how to go about doing that, right? And they're free. And if there's somebody who's interested in that, just send us a message and we'll be more than happy to provide you with a link.
Yeah, and there's some online services that will do it for you automatically. You still have to log into your accounts and link them to the service, which I guess is a bit of a problem. I would always want to do it myself. It's just go settings, deactivate, delete, and usually that's how you do it.
I see you bypass the question. Are there risks associated with VPNs?
Yeah, if you are using a VPN, that's probably a free VPN. Yeah. We have seen some scams where free VPNs are actually designed to harvest your data and sell it.
And free VPNs can slow down your internet connection as well, right?
And there was a controversy with Facebook Meta where they had given a VPN to youth in order to spy on what they're doing on Snapchat, or at least try to decode it.
Wasn't it called Project Ghostbusters?
Yeah,
it's called Project Ghostbusters.
Okay, problematic. Fantastic name.
Yeah, it was.
Because the logo for it is a ghost.
Yeah, when I read that, I went, "That's a good name."
Oh, nerds coming up with the best names
for sure.
Yeah. So make sure your VPNs are properly paid for and legitimate companies. Yeah. What alternatives exist for social media platforms like Instagram?
There's a plethora of them out there, right? Like, now, what I am finding, though, and what we have found for several years now, are teens are kind of zeroing in on what do they want to use the platform for. If they want to reach a wider audience, they'll use Instagram. If they want to connect mostly with friends, they'll use Snapchat, right? So again, what's really kind of cool with teens is they've now learned and have become educated enough that they're picking apps that they think will meet their needs when it comes to communication, for issues such as watching movies or entertainment and that kind of stuff, right? But there's just a ton of them out there, right?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges we're going to face going forward into the future is there's a lot more fragmenting of different online spaces, although they have very similar features. Like there's 5 different alternatives to Twitter X now, for obvious reasons. But which one do you spend your time on?
Twitter's a dumpster fire right now.
Everyone's still on Twitter. Everyone has a Twitter account, so it's
or X.
X.
We don't call it Twitter.
Yeah. So we're seeing a decentralization of a lot of these platforms, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on the Tor browser?
Well, I mean, it's like any other browser. The primary reason for the Tor browser, which Tor stands for the Onion Router, it just allows you to go into the deep web, right? To have a look down there. I think what's really important is a lot of people believe that the Tor browser would totally obfuscate, make yourself invisible, privatize. And that's not necessarily true.
Yeah, there are some government reports that some large entities and state actors, if they can...
With 3 letters.
Yeah, if they can...
CIA.
If they can control
FBI.
a lot of exit nodes... Because when you go through Tor, it goes to all kinds of different computers. If you can control a lot of exit nodes, you can begin to track people through that network. Although it requires a lot of infrastructure to do, there is possibility there. So, yeah, it's not perfect.
Yeah, but a lot of people think that down in the deep web, it's all bad stuff, and that's not necessarily so. Like the deep web, a smaller component of that is the dark web, which more of the criminal activity takes place. But the deep web is a lot of universities. That's where they store their papers, their academia, their studies, and that kind of stuff. Or if you're having to get into a website behind a paywall, then you're going into the deep web, right? In order to do that. So,
what strategies can people employ to safeguard their personal information and privacy online? Well, I think you use the public internet to the degree that you feel comfortable with. The more public you become, the chances for more challenges do increase. If you're playing online games privately with your friends, you're probably going to have a great time and things are probably going to stay pretty safe and private.
Yeah, we've written a whole article for teens and adults on this very issue. So if you head over to our website, which is
thewhitehatter.ca.
And then type into the search block privacy settings. It'll take you to several documents that we've written to show you how to increase your privacy when you're online, right? Step by step. So check it out.
Is Snapchat a secure platform? It's as secure as you make it. If you're talking to the friends who you truly do know and you're doing good things on there, then it's fine. If you're doing problematic things on there, then it's probably going to be more of a problem.
Like any other platform.
Speaking of,
it's not the tool, it's how you use the tool, right?
Is Spotify a safe platform?
Same answer.
Same answer. I mean, sure, are there podcasts and music that maybe you shouldn't be listening to given the content? Sure. Have we seen people make pornographic audio files and share them on Spotify? Yep. So it depends on where you go and how you use it. What are the major health risks associated with sleep deprivation?
I'll take that one. I mean, 3 right off the top of my head is the research shows us from places like the Stanford Health Sleep Center it can increase anxiety, can increase depression, which is extremely problematic, can increase aggressiveness in individuals. So those are 3 at the very top. My biggest concerns is issues surrounding anxiety and depression. Right, and how that can have a real negative effect on a teen brain, especially when it comes to the development of the brain. So,
yeah, it can definitely make you less resilient to challenges you may come across.
For sure.
In case you're not as prepared. How much personal information should be shared in bios to maintain anonymity?
I guess it comes down to what your comfortability is with respect to how much information you share, right?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, people don't always realize, but what's in your bios is still public to everyone. Yeah. Even if you have a private account, everyone sees your bios. Right. So I've seen people put their actual emails on there.
Yeah.
That's probably not the best idea. I've seen students put the school they go to in their bio, and that's probably not the best idea. So it can depend on what you put there.
Yeah, and just understand that your bios are usually searchable, and as a result of that, it may give a bad actor the ability to track where you are, who you are, and to do some other bad things, right? So
how can one differentiate between legitimate moderators and imposters on social media platforms? So you get a message from someone claiming that they work for Facebook, Meta, Instagram, Snapchat, and they say, hey, you have a problem with your account. Listen to me because I'm the admin moderator.
exactly.
It happens, especially today when social media platforms are very sensitive to content they share and post. They're very heavy. They're very easy to ban and block and ban people nowadays over content. So, yeah, you may come across messages saying, hey, you have an account that's banned, blocked, or something. But usually that's through notifications built into the app you are using. It's usually not some other account who messages you.
Right.
It's usually built into the app you're using. So I think that's the good takeaways. I wouldn't believe any phone call, text, or message someone sends to me claiming they're the support team when there's a good chance they're not.
And then also think about connecting with that platform directly to ask them, hey, did somebody from you connect with me, is another option as well, right?
Is it appropriate to use social media for educational purposes in school?
I'll answer that one. Yeah, I think it's appropriate and reasonable to do so. I mean, because technology is ubiquitous in our lives today, what better place to teach young people and even adults how to use it in a appropriate way, right? So yeah, I think there's some real benefits to it. I think where it becomes problematic is where students are using it inappropriately in the classroom, where it can become a distraction and some of those other issues. But yeah, I think teachers who are using it for the purposes of educational purposes are really cool. Like I found one incident where a teacher was using the VR capability of the new phones now to take their kids out into the environment to do some really cool things from a biology and science standpoint, right? So yeah, I do. I do think that it's appropriate and reasonable to do that.
Can a VPN effectively protect search histories, and how can one prevent ISPs, internet service providers, from accessing this information? Well, that's what a VPN does. It creates a special tunnel through the internet that only you and the VPN can see what you're doing. Now, keep in mind, if you're using a VPN, your device is still recording a history of where you go and what you do. Also note, if you actually use a VPN, but you log in to social media or play an online game, well then the online game, once you log in, knows who you are, and they're tracking everything you're doing. So exactly. VPN's not going to do anything there to help you. Exactly. So you have to make those considerations.
We actually believe that VPNs are more of a positive than they are a negative, were used in the appropriate way, right?
Yeah. Is AI more beneficial or problematic?
I'll take that one. It depends. AI is just a tool. It's like any other tool. You keep hearing us say this time and time again. It's depending upon how you use it. Like a really good example, like I shared today with a high school. There was a high school student here in Canada that used AI to develop a specific type of hearing aid for the hearing impaired. There was another high school students, plural, who used AI to help find a cure to a specific brain tumor. How cool is that? So again, it's not the tool. It's how people use the tool that makes it good or bad.
Yeah.
And AI is no different. Can AI be used in a negative way? Sure can, but much like any other tool. Hammer, I can use it in a positive way to build really cool things, or I can use it as a weapon to beat somebody with it. Right? Yeah. So again, AI is no different.
What is your opinion on Sora AI? So that's the OpenAI ChatGPT video AI that they previewed a few months ago.
Looks pretty cool.
Yeah, obviously looking close, like most AI generated, you can see issues in terms of the realism, but
it'll get better.
It'll get better. I think stock footage companies are going to go out of business.
Trouble.
You know, why would you pay for stock footage when you can just generate exactly what you want using AI?
Yeah, I think I was just about to say that. I think those stock footage companies are looking at this going, right? Like, how can we now integrate it into what it is that we're doing so that we don't lose market share?
Yeah.
So.
Can people access postings on a private account? Well, anything you post online is in the cloud, so any admins and the people who run the social network will be able to see what you post privately, typically. Anyone who gets into your account will see what you're doing, but, typically that doesn't always happen.
Correct,
So you're going to be pretty good to assume that normal, average, decent, regular people are not going to see it, but just understand it still exists there, and things private today, there could be tech issues, there could be bugs, and things could obviously at some point maybe get leaked. So you're never going to know.
Yeah.
And those are the top unanswered questions from last month.
Whew.
A lot of questions.
Yeah.
Good questions.
Yeah.
And we'll do this again for April. We'll see you all then.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.